Welcome to Barnyard Language, honest talk about running farms and raising families. We are Katie and Arlene, an Iowa sheep farmer and an Ontario dairy farmer, with 6 kids, 2 husbands, and a whole lot of chaos between us.
While this is a podcast for farm families, sometimes our content isn't for the whole family. So kick off your boots, reheat your coffee, and join us for some Barnyard Language.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Barnyard Language, post-Halloween edition. So, Katie, how are things? Were the children adorable on Halloween? How much candy has been consumed in your house?
All the candy. Upside, I somehow raised a daughter who doesn't like peanut butter. Pretty sure that means she's a pod person. It also means that I get all the peanut butter stuff from her bag. So I have stopped trying to encourage her to eat it.
She can get her protein in other ways.
Well, it's mostly that peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are really easy, and sometimes it would make my life easier if she would just eat one. But this way I get more Reese's, so it feels like a pretty fair trade-off. In our town, because there's a lot of Orthodox Orthodox Jews in town, and they do not observe Halloween. But one family had put out candy on their front gate with the sign to take it, and my daughter, in all of her immense wisdom, of all of the years that she has found this one Jewish house ever that had candy out, runs over, looks in the bag that's hanging there, and yells at the top of her lungs, "The Jews always have the best candy." So we may be looking for a new town to move to because we were in the middle of a very crowded neighborhood. And we also developed a bit of a game with a reformed Jewish friend of ours that, if you're familiar, and it's just such a small town Halloween problem, it just killed me. If you're familiar with how a lot of the Hasidic Eastern European Jewish girls dress, it tends heavily towards long dark hair, usually in braided pigtails, plain shirt, dark skirt, black shoes. If you've ever seen Wednesday Addams, it tends towards long dark hair, braided pigtails, plain shirt, dark skirt, black shoes. And so my friend Crystal and I were playing a fairly raucous game of Wednesday or Jewish, because I saw a lot of girls that I honestly couldn't quite be sure.
Yeah, Wednesday's back. She's got her own show, so she's a popular option again.
She really is. She really is. And it's yeah, it was just one of those things that probably doesn't happen in too many places in the world, where it would be certainly not too many places in rural Iowa.
Right. So for context, for people who don't know, why is there a Hasidic Jewish population in rural Iowa where you live?
There, in our very, very small town, is a kosher processing plant that does poultry and, I think some beef cattle, maybe? I'm confused by this, but whatever. Um, but it is owned by, uh, folks who have moved here, and we have a lot of folks who have emigrated here from other places to work there, which means that we have an amazingly diverse community in our very small corner of rural Iowa. But about my daughter yelling about the Jews having the best candy, it was just that in her mind, this one time that she has encountered this thing was enough to make her an expert on things. She will say she and she and the boy child were arguing about whether they needed to go to basketball camp on Saturday, because they're both pretty much already professional basketball players, because one of them shot a couple free throws at recess once, like 2 months ago. And they're not joking, like, that is just how their brains work.
Yeah, so we can skip it now.
Yeah, yeah. They do really enjoy learning new things, like, they're not obnoxious about it, I don't think, but it just kinda cracked me up that this just
Well, I'll move on to the next skill. If you've got that one mastered, then. Next.
Harvest is done. Thank God. I think most of the grain is unloaded. I don't know. I'm not going to ask. Um, Now we're just waiting. I think we have one cow left to calve, but she was AI'd quite a bit after all the other cows were natural serviced. So we're just waiting. The new rams seem to be quite enthusiastic about their work. They're very dedicated. Um, we have a lot of ewes running around with chalk marks on their butts in all sorts of fun colors, so that's good. Um, Starting to get all the social media notifications about all the small town Thanksgiving, Christmas, church dinner, fireman's pancakes, every other damn fundraiser under the sun. Also, the Union Pacific holiday train, and just all the community stuff. All.
All the festive events. Just fill up the calendar.
Yep, exactly. How are things at your place, Arlene?
Well, Halloween was cold and rainy and miserable, but we still did it, mostly with smiles on our faces. And sometimes the umbrellas were turned the right way, and sometimes they were being blown upside down. Um, but it got done. We had have just the youngest, when we had all 4 kids, we did country trick-or-treating and just went around to our friends and neighbors and loaded kids in and out of car seats a million times. Well, maybe 10, but it felt like a million when you're doing that many. So, walking around the streets of town is a whole different experience, but it's fun in a different way. And it definitely felt like anyone with a kid kind of under 5 was like, "We're skipping it this year," because there weren't the babies and toddlers out, and I do not blame them because it was so cold, but it was still fun to be out there and see all the kids running around and enjoying life, and we've been able to share in the candy because he told us that we took him trick-or-treating, so we get to share, so that was pretty nice, and our, 17-year-old had friends over that night, which was the first time I think he's kind of ever organized, initiated, and gone and actually driven and picked friends up to bring them over, which felt like a important milestone for him. He has a good group of friends, but is not sometimes very good at taking initiative in terms of actually getting together with them. So that was very impressive. He even took a poll and asked them what snacks they wanted, and he went and spent some of his own money on acquiring the snacks. He told me several times how much they cost, but I maybe need to remind him every now and then how much groceries cost every time I buy them. But that's fine. He used his own bank card, so that's great. They were well fed and watched horror movies, and I stayed away because I do not like scary movies at all. It's not my thing.
So how pleased are you feeling with your success in raising a kind, thoughtful, friendly human? Seems like pretty damn good work, Arlene.
Oh, well, thanks. Hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, thumbs up.
I mean, he took initiative, planned something, asked his friends what they wanted, and then made it happen. And spent his own money doing it. That's really I know plenty of adults, myself included, who would struggle with that. So,
As his friend, when his friends were there, I did mention to him at one point, "Don't say how much you spent on snacks. It's fine. Just cut that part out. You don't have to tell them." But yeah, it was nice to see him hanging out with his buddies. And what else has been going on? Harvest here is also done. The corn is all off. It is corn and beans were neither what we had hoped for in terms of yield or price, but they're off the fields and it is what it is. So, you know, things will be a little bit different this year in terms of how much income to expense we have, but I'm sure that we are definitely not the only ones experiencing that. So, thinking of all of you who are in the same place this year. And what else has been going on? Well, the manure will be going out soon. It's been a little rainy this week, so they haven't shown up yet, but the manure will go out on the fields. And I'm not sure exactly which fields it's going on, but we have a lot of new neighbors since last time we spread manure. The housing development that is going in across the road has been ramping up, and there's a lot more lights on at night, which is a new experience for us too. They're not, I guess they're not right across the road, but they're within sight of our farmhouse. So that's interesting. And so they will get to experience their first fall spread and the associated smells. So good luck to them. And yeah, think I mentioned last week we're in prep week for the Royal. The 4-H kids got together on the weekend and packed up the trailer with all the tie-up stuff for their fancy display. And this is the week where we kind of try and catch up on sleep and chores so that we can go to the city next week and show cows in the city instead of at a small town fair. So it's both more expensive and more time consuming, but it also is our chance every year to connect with lots of people that we only get to see at the Royal Winter Fair. So that's fun too.
So it's like the peak mom vacation where you get to do all the same stuff you do at home, but more expensively and less conveniently. But you get to take cows and other people's children.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm not actually a chaperone, so that helps. I don't actually have to stay with the youth. And since our boys are not really into showing animals, they are actually staying home and doing some of those chores. So it means that my mother-in-law is kind of here being in a supportive mom, grandma role, making sure they get fed and get to school. And so actually for me, I should say it's semi-relaxing because I'm not actually the one doing any of the parenting side of things for the week. So I shouldn't complain. It's actually pretty fun.
That sounds good.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and introduce our guest for this week?
All right.
Today, we are excited to be talking to Courtney Miller, who's joining us from Ohio. So, Courtney, we start all of our interviews with the same question because we find it's a good way to introduce yourself to our listeners. So, we always ask, what are you growing? So, usually our farmers tell us about crops and livestock, but people also tell us about kids and businesses and all kinds of other stuff. So, Courtney, welcome, and what are you growing?
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. So we grow corn, soybeans, wheat, triticale, um, and hay. So that's kind of what we do. We are a beef operation, and then I have a small herd of Nigerian dwarf show goats that we have.
And are you also growing some kids?
Yes, we have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. They're 9, 7, and 5.
That is a growing stage for sure. So, usually, being a farming podcast, people want to know about livestock. So, you're also growing some beef cattle, is that true?
Yes, yep, so we have, a couple hundred head, I don't know, 250 or so head of beef cattle that we raise up every year, just complete totally always bringing new in, shipping new out, things like that, just super cool.
Are you and your husband, I'm assuming, or partner, are you both on the farm? Do people have off-farm jobs? Like, what kinds of other stuff is going on that helps to grow all of those things?
Yeah, so my husband and his uncle actually farm together. It's basically they're a partnership, they're an LLC. It's those two together. They are the main farm, they are the main ones. My brother-in-law helps out a little bit when he can. He works for the state, so he gets some free time that he's able to help out and do some things that my husband can't always do, or he's just another set of hands. And then I help out as needed with when I can, but I work off the farm. I work admissions at a college by us.
And so, what is your particular background in agriculture? Were you always from a farm, or were you a married in?
I married into it. So I kind of always knew that that's where I wanted to end up. And I kind of found my farmer, and that's kind of where it was. We met at our local feed store.
That worked out.
Yes, I was working there at the time, and he came in looking for a broom. I showed him where the brooms were. Our mill guy lived with him at the time. He was a farmhand. He worked part time at the farm. He came back the next day and said, "Hey, that guy you helped with the broom the other day said you were real cute. I said you had a nice butt."
You had to bend over to show them where the rooms were.
No, but he followed me down the aisle.
To say this must have been a heck of a sales pitch.
Yeah, it must have been. We joke about it all the time. So he I don't know, rest is history. We started dating a couple of months later, and here we are 13 years later.
So, Courtney, I also married into a farm that transitioned from dairy into beef, and I'm wondering what went into that decision for your family. my husband's family had made that transition several years before I married in, so I wasn't here for it. But I'm wondering how that looked for you guys.
Yeah, so it was definitely a big adjustment and a big transition because we were a dairy farm when we started dating. That was, I tell him all the time, that's the only reason I stayed at first was the cute calves. Um, so I started out helping him with the feeding the calves and things like that. That was my main job on the farm when we had the dairy. And then our parlor was built in the early 60s. So it was a small four stall parlor. It was built for someone of much shorter stature than my husband. He's about 6 foot and I'm about 5'2". So I fit nicely in the parlor and he did not, him nor my brother in law Ben that helped. It was a really old parlor. So we actually sold out March of 2020, right before the world went crazy and shut down. And it wasn't because of anything that like we had to or we were being forced out or anything like that. We were fortunate in that way. It was truly our decision. Um, but it was to the point where our parlor needed updates. We needed to redo the barn. We needed to redo everything. And it's really hard to try and sink over $1 million, into the dairy industry when that return is just not there. So we had always finished out all of our bull calves. We always finished them out as finished years. Everything stayed on our farm until they were finished animals. So it was a decently easy transition for us. We just kind of had to rework our barnyard to make it make sense to keep, steers in instead of just cows that are a little more easygoing. Steers destruct everything.
It seems like that's one of the issues that my husband's family still struggles with some is just that our facilities were built for dairy cows, and my husband's dad especially, most of his animal handling experience comes from dairy cows who, come in and go out at the same time and they go in the same order, and they beef cattle are a little less.
Handled.
Yeah. What breed of beef cattle are you guys mostly running?
Mostly Holsteins. So we have a cattle jockey that lives really close to us. He's only about like 3 miles away. And that's who we run like 99% of our cattle through, either but purchasing or selling. So we do most of it. We really are just buying whatever is available and whatever's a good price, which right now is hard to find, as you guys probably both know. So we do run mostly Holsteins. We actually run a lot of Holstein heifers that are replacement heifers that, either there's people getting out of the dairies or they have too many replacements. So they're selling them off that way. So we're finishing out actually a lot of Holstein heifers. But we do have the occasional um, colored cattle that run through. Like we just got rid of a handful last week, a trailer load last week. We got rid of some. So we do have a few, but we are mainly Holstein based.
So, Courtney, one of the reasons that we wanted to talk to you on the show today was about an important topic that Katie and I have, for a while have wanted to have on the show, but just didn't find the right guest. And through the magic of social media, we tracked you down. So, we're going to talk today a bit about organ donation. So, I guess since you're willing to share your journey, we were wondering if you wanted to tell us about your health journey, and I'll kind of just let you start wherever you're most comfortable, and then we can ask questions as things come up for us.
Sure. So I was diagnosed in 2014 with autoimmune hepatitis. It's not any of the letters, it's not blood transferable, it's not transferable through other bodily fluids such as breast milk or saliva or anything like that, which was a fear and issue when I was having kids, obviously. Um, it's an autoimmune disorder that one day that they don't know what the cause is, they don't know what flares it, they don't know what makes it pop up, they don't know really much about it other than there's two main forms of it. One is the form I have, which targets mostly women, um, upper teens, early 20s through about like 35, 40 is the highest level. There are men that have it. I actually have a friend of a friend that has it. I actually know two people with autoimmune hepatitis. One is a man and one is a woman. They're both older than I am, and they were both older than I was when when they were diagnosed. And then the other form hits young kids. So I was diagnosed in 2014. In 2013, I went through a really rough personal time period. I had a really rough breakup. I lost a lot of weight. Um, and I didn't really know why. I thought it was just the stress of everything. And then I kind of continued losing weight as my life progressed and it got better. And I met my husband. Um, by like February or March of 2020 or of 2014, I was super weak. I was really thin. I couldn't, like, my joints hurt all the time. I couldn't stand in the shower. I couldn't stay in the full shower. I couldn't open bottles of water. I couldn't open jars. I was just super weak, joints, like all sorts of issues. I would get like a tiny scrape on my hand. It wouldn't heal for like months. It would become infected super easy, just all sorts of weird things. I started looking really gaunt. My eyes started getting a little tinged yellow. And then in April, it became a really big head and I got extremely ill. So I ended up going and getting some testing done, and we realized that I had my gallbladder was impacted with gallstones, which your gallbladder, your liver filters through your gallbladder. It's all interconnected. Um, and So they removed my gallbladder in April of 2014. About a whole week after, it's like a 2 week healing period because it's actually a pretty painful major surgery. So it was like a 2 week healing period. So week one, I felt great, like back to normal. I was getting my strength back. My joints were feeling good. And prior to this, they started testing me for all sorts of things like, was it rheumatoid arthritis? Was it lupus? Things like that. Post, it like was a day, like the exact day week two started. All my symptoms came like roaring back, just angry, pissed off, like just heightened. The pain, the joint pain again, the weakness, the just overall malice, just not feeling good. So we knew something bigger was going on. So we did more testing for other autoimmune diseases. Finally, I was referred to a specialist at Cleveland Clinic, and I met her in May. She took one look at me at that first appointment and rushed me to another floor and performed a liver biopsy on me that day because she's like, I looked at you, I knew something wasn't right, I knew you were sick. So they actually put a needle through my rib cage to take a sample of my liver to test it, and that's how autoimmune hepatitis is confirmed. It has to be through a liver biopsy sample. They can suspect it through blood work and other things and other imaging, ultrasounds and CAT scans and stuff, but it's confirmed through that liver biopsy. So I got put on prednisone and azathioprine, which is an immune suppressant, and prednisone's a steroid. I had been on those from 2014 all the way up through my transplant. And there's good days, there's bad days, there's good months, there's bad months, there's flares, there's all sorts of things. Like a flare is when my enzymes shoot super high, I get really yellow, I get really sick feeling, I start not feeling well, I start getting dizzy or weak, um, things start not healing again. During this time period, I had all three of my kids successfully, no issues. My first kiddo, I was healthier pregnant, just because of the way the hormones are in our body. Our bodies are weird during pregnancy. I was actually healthier at that point. My second kiddo, my daughter, I was in a flare when I got pregnant with her. So that pregnancy was a little rougher, but still fine. And then we had known we wanted one more kid. So we decided, we wanted another kiddo. We actually had to go through testing for our last son, our last kid, to make sure I was going to be actually able to carry, because my disease had progressed so much in that time period, between my first two and my last one, that we had to make sure I was going to be safe to carry him. Because your liver, like when it becomes cirrhotic and you get cirrhosis of the liver, your blood flow starts restricting, and like everything in our body is run through our liver. That is like one of the main organs in your body. It formulates everything gets run through it, it filters everything. So your blood flow starts not flowing through it. So you can get blood clots, you can get your blood vessels backed up, like in your esophagus, and those are called varices. So when you're pregnant, those are especially dangerous because the baby is pressing on it, and all your organs and everything are squishing up. It can create pressure, and it can actually they can burst in your esophagus and then you're internally bleeding and you don't know, and then that's a real emergency. But thankfully, I was able to have all of my kids naturally, no issues, nothing like that, which is a big blessing. In 2021, I was hospitalized for the first time. I was super sick. I was at work and I had like turned around. I was walking out of the one door inside my job. I was working in a vet's office at the time, and I passed out. So they ended up taking me in, and I was in a bad flare. My enzymes were all whacked out, and my body was just in like panic mode. I ended up being diagnosed at that point with cirrhosis. They said, up until that point, it was always, maybe one day you'll have to have a transplant, and you know, yeah, that's something we have to plan for. But like you're still like on the fence. You might not ever need one because it's not overly common for people with autoimmune hepatitis to have a transplant. It's one of those ones that can be managed pretty well, and it just kind of depends on your body, how you respond to the medications and things like that, and how you handle them. Um, so we went from that point to maybe one day to you're going to have a transplant. Like you're not 30 yet. You have cirrhosis already. It's progressing. This has been pretty progressive for you. It's not a slow growing disease like it is in other people. It's attacking you pretty rapidly. So that was in 21. And we kind of just kept managing it. I ended up switching doctors in 23 to a private practice that was still going through Cleveland Clinic because they are one of the best transplant hospitals in the nation. So that was still a main thing. I wanted to make sure I was able to have a transplant there. And through switching to that doctor, things really started moving quickly with my health, but also with my journey with the doctors and them taking me more seriously and taking my illness more seriously and my transplant issues more seriously. If I hadn't have switched, I don't know if I'd be here, or on the flip side of a transplant yet. I really credit that to my doctor, Dr. Brombot. She was amazing. I got really, really sick starting early in 2024. I just wasn't feeling well, just really blah, had no energy. I would do things, say like we would go, I don't even know, like not even to the zoo, just yeah, maybe to the zoo, and I would need a couple days to recover, just needing to sleep. I needed to sleep at lunch. It was hard to keep my eyes open to drive home. Just overall exhausted. I couldn't get through the day without a nap, even if I wasn't really exerting myself or doing anything crazy.
And you have 3 young children, so I mean, being tired is part of that, and then your disease on top of it would mean that your time with your family would be pretty limited, I would guess, because you're so exhausted all the time.
Yes, and I am an overexerter as it is. I don't like to sit still. So this past year has been really hard for me with that. I, at the time, was a 4-H advisor. I was doing Clover Buds, the Clover Bud side of 4-H of our 4-H club with one of my friends. So I had, all the 4-H events and things like that. And then I've been a softball coach for my daughter's softball team for the last 4 years. So I had softball on top of that, plus being a wife, a mom, the farm, animals, just everything. So like I didn't have time to be sick, but our bodies make time, right? When we don't make time, our bodies make us make time. And that's one thing I've learned too, is that I don't have that option.
Yeah, that's right. You have to listen to your body even when you're trying to ignore it.
Yes, exactly.
So, Courtney, how have you explained it to your kids and how are they processing that? Because I mean, especially with a disease that flares like that, I mean, I would, as someone with a flaring chronic illness like that, I feel like for myself, it would be easier to explain if I were not to explain even, it would be easier for my kids to understand, and they're 8 and 7, if I was blind or a full-time wheelchair user or something where it's the same every day versus, like, today I'm pretty okay, tomorrow I'm not, and especially things that are more invisible, like autoimmune diseases and your liver, which is important, but also not like a thing that your kids can just see.
see, exactly. So it was a big adjustment, definitely. Last year I was hospitalized once a month from I think April through September. So October I was not in the hospital at all, which was really nice. I think one of those months last year I was hospitalized twice, anywhere from a couple days to a week. Um, so that was really hard on my kids, especially my oldest. She's a big feelings kid. She's a big empath. She feels everything really deeply. So, and she is very, very bright. So, her knowing that things aren't right, mom's not here, but mom's not here because she's sick. What if she doesn't come home? She's a high anxiety child. So, it was a really hard thing to handle with her in all of them. But it was a lot of FaceTime calls. Before my transplant, they were able to come see me a couple of times in the hospital, a couple of different hospital stays. Not everyone that they came to, but they were able to come up and see me and hang out for a little while. But it's hard. And like you said, it's an invisible illness. So, they just know that mom needed to sleep or mom needed to rest more. They had to help out more. Um, and especially my two girls, they were pretty good about helping and knowing when to help and things like that. I mean, they got to the point after transplant where I had to use like the shopping cart, like the mobile shopping carts, the mobile scooters, and things like that. So they tried to be helpful as well as what their brains can handle and what they can. And we being on a farm, and especially an animal farm, our kids are a little more desensitized to illness and death and things like that. So which is like a good thing, but also a bad thing in situations like this, right? Like they see that they don't need to be as protected, I think, which is like a good thing because my kids are, they're kind of desensitized a little to that. They know like things get sick, things pass, but it's like, okay, well, my mom is sick. Like, what does that mean? In terms of this. So, like, we prepped them as best as we could and as best that was age appropriate for them. Like mom's gonna be gone for a little while. When I come back, I'm gonna have like a big boo boo that like you guys can't touch me, you can't crawl on me, like you can hug me really gently. That was a big thing we plowed into them before my transplant. Is like when I come home, like you guys have to be like super careful. And then I had complications after my transplant where I had to have drains placed and I had multiple drains coming out of my stomach. So like they need to be gentle and careful and things like that. So some of it did become a visible one just because of healing and things like that. But beforehand, they tried their best to be, um, considerate and knowing that something's not quite right. My mom's not totally normal, and that I feel guilt on my end as a mom, because I feel like I should be doing all these things, but I also have to take care of myself and like limit what I can do. That way I'm not either getting sick or wearing myself out or, things like that.
I wonder too, I'm assuming that if you live somewhere that you're raising 200 cattle a year, you're probably not down the block from the Cleveland Clinic. And I think telehealth has been such an incredible thing for rural families, but they can't do a liver transplant remotely. And I'm assuming that if they're even, hospitalizing you for this sort of thing, you're probably, I mean, like, our local small town hospital is amazing. Both my kids were born there, but when I needed more in depth care, I went to Mayo Clinic, which thankfully for us is less than 2 hours away. But I think that's one of the things people miss is what a pain in the ass it is to have to drive 2 hours to get to your doctor. And just, I'm wondering how you guys worked that out because, especially with kids and livestock, and it's, it's a pain in the ass.
It is. So we are fortunate. Cleveland Clinic is about an hour away from us, about like 45, 50 minutes or so. And then just with traffic, with a main city like that. So we are fortunate that we are so close, right? Because Cleveland Clinic has parameters when you have a transplant. You have to be within an hour to 2 hours of the main hospital, or else you have to stay in a hotel or transplant housing or something along those lines. You have to, like, they don't give you that option. They will not transplant you without those plans in place. So we are very fortunate. Really fortunate. I actually was not allowed to drive last year after May. I got my license not taken away, but my doctor and my husband, I was actually driving and I shouldn't have been, and I didn't tell anybody because I'm very independent and I don't like relying on people. It's just who I am. Which has been a hard thing to learn, is to rely on people to do things for me and give up some of that freedom, and not even just freedom, just like be willing to let someone help me. Cause like I have people that will help me and like I have people more than happy to help, but it's me asking for that help or allowing them to help me. That's hard for me to relinquish some of that, controls that I'm not very good at. So I was actually driving and wasn't supposed to be driving. My husband went to an appointment with me and my doctor was like, "Oh, I'm glad to see like you finally like listened to me and brought someone with you. So you're not driving." My husband's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, I was like, "What do you mean? What do I mean?" I was like, What are you talking about?" She's like, "She didn't tell you?" He's like, "No." She's like, "I told her like a month and a half ago to quit driving." And he was like, "No." And I'm like, "I mean, I'm fine." I was like, "I know when to push myself and not push myself." Like, and he was like, "Oh my God." So my mom lives 10 minutes from us. So she's super close. My mother-in-law lives a quarter mile up the road. She's also the bus driver for our school district. So she's my kid's bus driver. So, which is super convenient. So they can get on the bus with grandma. And then, say, if like I was at an appointment and my husband wasn't home or something like that after school and no one was there, they can just stay on the bus with grandma. And then so my husband and his uncle farm together. So on our property, our two houses are like right next door to each other. It's the same property, everything. So his aunt and uncle are right next door. So any case, they can literally just, all our kids can just go next door too. So we are really fortunate to have family around and family we get along with, that we have that community around us. And then we have friends that are close by that were able to help us. But for the most part, it was either my mom or my husband running me back and forth to appointments last year and then after transplant, because I was not, you're not allowed to drive post transplant, A, because of medications, and then B, they don't want you driving because of the airbags. If you were to get into an accident, and your entire abdomen is completely opened up, like they don't want you. It's a little bit safer to be in the passenger side than versus being like where the steering wheel is, right? So we are just really fortunate to have that village behind us and around us to be able to help us with that and help us with transport or transport our kids. And then, like I said, with driving, we were really fortunate. Cleveland Clinic is within an hour of us, so we didn't have to worry. But it does suck in the middle of the night when I had to be rushed to the emergency room. I wasn't allowed to go to the emergency room anywhere else. It had to be main campus, so you're driving that hour to get up there, which that is a little, shitty on that end. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and scary for everyone involved, I'm sure. So let's go back to the part of the story where you're actually it's happening, like that a transplant is what is going to be needed. What discussions happened around that point, and what kind of liver were you looking for? What were your qualities?
It just sounds like she was gonna, like, roll down to the local meat counter and see what they had.
Okay, so I'll bounce forward a minute because that is funny. So it's my best friend's fiance that gave me his liver, right? And he jokes that we liver farmed him. He's like, "You guys farmed me. I just know it." He's like, "You guys probably snuck into my house one night and took my blood, and I didn't know it." And then she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll date this guy, and we'll get him close, and then we'll steal his liver from him."
Yeah, we'll lure him in, be real charming.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Courtney, do you think if, God forbid, they ever, like, break up, get divorced, whatever, like, do you have a prenup for the liver now? Like, how does that work? I mean, I'm guessing you can't repossess it, but I'm envisioning this divorce court situation.
I don't know, no repos on that. He's stuck with me and I'm stuck with him, I guess, is what we say. I tell her all the time. I said, "Well, you can't get rid of this one. You have to keep him. I mean, he's kind of part of me. I'm part of him. Like, you got to keep him."
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I do feel like we talk about once you have kids with someone, they're part of your life forever, but I feel like once you share organs with someone, like, that's even more, long term.
There's like some funny stories out there on the liver, like on the transplant pages of people, they're getting food preferences from their person, which is so odd, but so funny, and different preferences and stuff like that. I feel like I cry so much more afterwards. And he is like this big sappy guy. Like, so I say all the time, it's his fault I cry now. I said, because he's just such a sappy SOB. I'm like, it's your fault that I cry all the time. Like, I blame you. It's your liver. It makes me emotional.
Podcasts are free to listen to, but they aren't free to create. Katie and I would appreciate your support as we work to build the Barnyard Language community.
Patreon is an easy way for you to make a contribution that goes directly to making the show. As a member of our Patreon community, you get to watch the video version of our weekly updates, complete with questionable hairstyles and clutter. With 3 levels of support, you can choose a tier that works for you.
Keep the podcast going by becoming a patron today at patreon.com/barnyardlanguage.
So the liver transplant story. So I was super sick last year. I was hospitalized in May. I looked like I was 9 months pregnant and I wasn't. I had fluid retention and it makes you look pregnant. So they're called ascites. It's where fluid builds up because your liver is just not processing what it needs to process and everything is building up in your body. There's really severe cases. I was fortunate, even though I looked awful. I looked 9 months pregnant because I had lost a bunch of weight. They drained 2 liters worth of fluid out of me. So 2-liter pop bottle came out of my stomach, which it was pretty cool being agriculture and especially animals. We're pretty much, we think gross things are cool. Like I have a picture of my dead liver. My surgeon took a picture of my liver outside of my body. It's disgusting and amazing. My friend says she uses it as her party trick. Like, hey, you want to see this? So they drained 2 liters of fluid off of me. And that doctor, he was a resident. He was amazing. Like I hope Cleveland Clinic hires him or he decides to stay there because he was one of the most amazing people I've met on my journey. He said, I don't understand why they don't have you listed. I don't understand why we're waiting. Like he's like, you guys need to put, like, let's start this journey. Let's start pushing this. So that was May. Was hospitalized in June, just for not feeling well, things like that. I had ascites pop up 2 more times, but I never had to be drained. We handled them with water pills to help them be taken care of and flush out that way because they can't drain it if there's not enough fluid. They actually can't drain too much fluid off. 2 liters is okay. They can't drain more than like I think 3 or 4 liters at a time because it can put your kidneys into shock. So in June and July, my July hospitalization, I was up at main campus. The other 2 times I was at like a satellite hub that the doctors had like rights to or whatever, able to be in there. In July of last year, I started all of my prerequisite testing to be put on the list. So there is like, they look at everything. They're looking at your mental health. They're looking at all of your other organs. They're looking at your skin. They're looking at your bones. They're looking literally anything and everything you could think of. I had pap smears. I had dental appointments. I had skin cancer screenings. I had full body dermatologist screen. I had CAT scans, x-rays. I had osteoporosis screening. I had hundreds of vials of blood pulled. So they look at, like I said, they look at literally everything. They dive into your social background. They dive into your, mental health. They look at your family support system, just everything like that. They're looking at to make sure that you have the best success, like the best chance of success post-transplant. Like if you don't have someone to help you or care for you, like it's not going to go well. It's not going to be a positive experience for you and you're going to struggle and that liver could fail and they don't want to, it's rough, but they don't want to put all that effort into someone that's prone to fail to begin with. So that was a lot of testing in July. They told me I would be a good candidate for living donor transplant. So not everyone qualifies for that. My age and health were a big factor, I believe, because other than my liver, while it was attacking everything in my body and my whole body was kind of not well, that was the only thing wrong with me, right? Like I didn't have anything else. I didn't have cancer. I didn't have other issues going along with that. All of my issues just stemmed down from my liver, right? Like that was the top of the branch that was wrong. And then everything just kind of fell underneath of it from there because of that. So I was a really good candidate for living donor transplant. And because I wasn't overly sick, I was going to be kind of farther down on that deceased donor transplant list. So the way they score someone who needs a liver transplant is called the MELD scale, and it's model for end stage liver disease. So everyone gets a number. Someone totally healthy like wouldn't even be on the list, right? It's anywhere from a 6 to a 40, and the higher to 40, is your um, rating for, are you going to survive the next 3 months without a transplant? Like, are you going to survive? So 6 is great. 40 is like you could die tomorrow, and they're not even going to transplant you at a 40 because your success rate to come out of surgery is not even good to come off that table. So when I was transplanted, I was at a 19 on the score, so I was about midway. Cleveland Clinic doesn't start listing you until you hit a 15. But still, even at a 15, like you're going to be kind of farther down on that scale unless the stars align and things kind of fall into place for you, which is why we went through the living donor route, right? So they talked to me and they said, hey, like, we think you'd be a great candidate for living donor. You should start putting your story out there. You should start talking to family, to friends, coworkers, whoever, to see if there are people interested. So someone to be a living liver donor, and most of my knowledge is for liver, obviously, because I've done it the last 10, 12 years, but it's it has to be someone from 18 to 40 or to 60. Excuse me. So they have to be 18 to 60. 18, obviously, to give consent. And 60, your liver actually starts deteriorating after that, and it loses the ability to regenerate fast, which our liver is regenerative. It can regrow. It's the only organ that heals itself like that. So after age 60, it kind of starts slowing that progression down, and it does not heal and redo it well. So that was kind of like the first parameter. So we started off, I got approved, I got all my testing done in July, and we knew we were going to start going forward with that. In September, they officially, on September 11th of 2024, they did what they call present me in my case to the transplant committee. All of the testing they did, my background, am I good at taking my medications? Do I have family to back me up? Things like that. They present me to the committee and say, hey, this is the case for, her. We think she's going to be a successful transplant. We think, she's got the successful background and things like that. And you get presented to the committee and they either give you a yay or a nay. So the next day we were approved, obviously, which was great. But even once you're approved, you don't automatically go on the national organ list. So it has to be then, after they approve you, it has to be sent over to your insurance agency for them to approve it, which I still have my insurance approval letter because I thought it was awesome. And then once that hits, then you do some more work with the hospital social worker and pre-transplant coordinator, and they get you officially listed on the National Organ Registry. So I actually never got listed until the Friday before my transplant. And that was because I had a living donor already lined up. They didn't need to list me because it was there. So I actually never got listed, because I had so many people end up coming out, and putting their information in to get tested, that they were like, there's no way that someone on this list isn't going to, be your match. So, we're not even going to list you at the moment and take up that space for somebody else. Like, we know that we're going to be able to find a match for you within like a small time period.
So, how long would it have taken between approval to being put on the list, say for someone who didn't have that?
It just depends. From approval to getting put on the list, it's like a month or two. And then after that, you have no idea when your call and time is coming. So I've networked with many people, with multiple people who had a transplant before me. I spoke with, when I was hospitalized in May of this year, my cleaning lady, her niece was actually going through the liver transplant journey, and she was pre-transplant. And she had actually gotten 2 false alarm calls where you get all your stuff ready, you start heading, either you head to the hospital, you get there, or you're getting ready and they say, hey, it wasn't viable, or it's not a match, or you were second in line and the first person took it. So she had had 2 false alarms, and by her third one, she actually was able to get a liver. But it can take months, it can take years, it can take days. There's just no telling of, when you're listed, how long it takes for you to get your liver, and depends on your blood type and other social factors as well. Um, but it can take like a month or so from official yes from the transplant committee to actually getting listed with, because there's like some background paperwork and things like that have to take place before someone would get listed. And then your meld score determines where you're at on that scale, right? Like, top priority is highest meld score, bottom priority, like you've got time, and it's constantly getting updated, because when you're sick like that, you're constantly getting lab work done. It's constantly being monitored. So it's getting, you get listed with one number, but say if there's a big jump, it's going to get adjusted, and you'll get moved accordingly on the scale.
So you went through a ton of tests, and then you said you had a bunch of people who were willing to put their names forward. Is a blood test kind of step one for all those people?
Yep. So knowing what your blood type is. Knowing what your blood type is the biggest step, is the biggest first step. So when we were walking around our county fair last year, my donor, he was like, I don't even know. And like at that point, I'd already had like close friends and family, like, no, they weren't a match or things like that. He was like, I don't even know what my blood type is. There's a blood mobile there. It's ran by Vitalant. And he's like, I wonder if they would blood type, like tell me what my blood type is. So he walked up and he asked them. They said, yeah, if you donate blood, like you get your blood type results in like 24 to 48 hours. He's like, okay, cool. So we did that, and we're walking around after. We're like, oh, wouldn't it be so funny or crazy, like if you were my match? We're all like, ha ha, yeah, it'd be so funny. Well, 2 days later, he was like, oh my god, I have the same blood type. So he immediately went through. Cleveland Clinic has a specific portal to be a living donor. And they can, if you know someone who needs it, there's like a space for you to say, like, I want to be a living donor for, Jane Doe, this specific person, but they have to be like, that person that you want to be a donor for has to be like going through the process themselves. That way they have like someone to match you to, like that way they could put your data where it needs to go. Or you can just say, I want to be an altruistic donor and I feel that pull and I want to be able to do that for somebody just because. So he submitted all of his work, all of his information he needed to submit, age, health history, things like that. And he ended up getting called in September 17th and 18th of 24 to do all this testing in Cleveland. And then by October 4th, we got the approval that he was my match, that we were going to be able to go forward with the transplant with his liver. But it was a quick process on that front for us. It was like end of August to holy cow, boom, like
Right. From the fair to the operating room, and short turnaround. So how much of a liver do they take?
so. It depends on the size of the person, both ways. Your liver is in two segments, your left lobe and your right lobe. Your right lobe is large, your left lobe is a lot smaller. For pediatric patients, obviously they can't use a pediatric liver. So your liver is not quite like a goldfish where it's only going to grow to the bowl. It's kind of going to grow to the size where it's supposed to be. So you actually have to find someone close in the same stature to be able to be a donor. Like I am 5'2", so I could not have like a 6'4" man be a liver donor to me, because his liver is just going to be way too big. Even if they only took a small part, that liver is going to grow and try and grow to be something too big for my body. Um, so when looking at like pediatric patients, they typically only take the left lobe or just a portion of the left lobe to fit into like a smaller frame person. And that's actually what I ended up getting. I ended up just getting the left lobe. So I think he was left with like 73% of his liver is what they said. And they do all of this, like this is all part of their pre-testing they do when they're ruling someone in or out to be a living donor is, he's doing tons of testing, tons of blood work, and tons of imaging. So they're looking at his liver on like the CAT scan or whatever, and they're actually looking at the segments of his liver and saying, where are his blood vessels at? Where does this lie? Where can we cut into that we're like with the least amount of issues that we're going to have for bile ducts and blood vessels and things like that. So they actually knew what part they were taking before we're even on the operating table. They knew that weeks in advance. Um, so I only had like a small portion of his liver, like 27% of his liver. And then by 8 weeks post op, his liver was back to its normal size. It had regrown that quickly. And then my liver should be the size it's always going to be. It was that way by like 3 or 4 months post. It was grown back to the size that it was supposed to be, which is just crazy that it grows that quickly.
Bodies are amazing things. It's so strange. So I know that your recovery was more complicated, but say for his situation as the living donor, what does his surgery and recovery look like? We'll start there because I'm assuming his was easier than yours.
Yes, it was. So Cleveland Clinic is one of the only hospitals that does laparoscopic living donor liver transplants. So he had just a small 4-inch scar right like underneath his pant line where they took the liver out of, and then he had a couple of portholes, for cameras and drains and things like that. So his was completely laparoscopic, which is awesome. It helps decrease that recovery time for them. It helps increase the chance of getting a donor because they're not, I mean, it's a major surgery, but they're not getting majorly opened up. They're not getting filleted open, right? So it's an easier recovery time for them because it is just small little incisions that they have to deal with. So my transplant was on a Tuesday, I believe it was, and or maybe it was a Monday. It might have been a Monday, but it was on the 4th of November. And by Friday, he was released from the hospital. So he was in for 4 days. And he was released. So he works for welding. He's a welder, does welding and fabrication. So he had to be off for 3 months. He went back in February just because of the dust and the lifting and things like that. So you're on a lift restriction. So he was off for 3 months just because of his job type, right?
Sure. So depending on your job, someone else might be able to go back earlier than that.
They could go back about a month earlier, about 8 weeks past post is when they can go back. But 12 weeks was his recovery time. But he was doing really well. It hurts to sit to sit up. That was a big issue for him going home. The first couple weeks, you're trying to get used because you do everything with your abdomen. Sitting up, laying down, turning, bending, whatever it is, your abdomen's getting engaged in that. But his recovery was pretty easy. He had no complications or anything like that. He had a couple follow-ups and then he was clear. And then his next follow-up will be at our 1-year anniversary on November 4th.
And I'm just asking these questions because if there's someone out there, whoever goes through this or wants to do this, are there any long-term health complications for him? Are there any risks going forward? Or, I mean, you said his liver's already pretty much back to the way it was. So I'm guessing there aren't any significant risks for him.
Correct. So, I mean, he can never donate another piece of his liver again, even though it regenerates.
Oh, you gotta stick with just the ones.
Yeah, he's not, yeah, just the one time. He's not allowed to do that again. I'm not sure about other organs, but I know really there's no major risks. The initial risks are really just recovery, potential for hernia or infection, like really quickly post op. But other than that, some mental health things would be another one, but most of that is pretty much immediately post-op or in the month or so immediately post-op, but long term there's no risks for him involved at all.
So it sounds like it's basically like a small C-section for a little liver baby.
So my best friend Brooke, his fiance, she had a C-section when she had her son, and she's like, I'm gonna punch him in the face if he calls us C-section buddies one more time. Because he says the same thing. He'll look at his scar and be like, look, we're C-section buddies. Yeah, so yeah, it's a liver baby C-section is what it is.
So are you guys gonna have a little anniversary party?
Yes, I think we are actually. I think we're going to try and do something. I don't know if we're going to do something on the actual anniversary on November 4th. My birthday is actually 3 days later. So I celebrated my 31st birthday in the hospital. I have a picture from my birthday of me in my hospital bed, my husband in the chair next to me, Kyle is in a wheelchair, my donor, and then my best friend Brooke is sitting on the bed with me. And there's a picture of all four of us on my birthday, post liver transplant last year. My birthday is November 7th. So it's one of my favorite pictures. We all look rough. We all look like we've been living in the hospital for a couple of days, but it's one of my favorite pictures in the universe because it's just so special to me.
Yeah, yeah, life changed for the better. So obviously you were sicker going into your transplant and have a much more difficult recovery. So what were the days and weeks following recovery like for you?
So I was doing really well early on. I was up and walking like 2 days post. So the entire first day post, you're pretty much out of it. It depends on the person, whether they bring you out of like that comatose state or not. Immediately, you're in ICU, the surgical ICU, at least a day or two post. And I was out, I think within like 24 or 36 hours, I think I was moved up to the transplant floor. So I was moved up pretty quickly and I was doing laps like that next day because they really want you to be walking and moving and get everything working again and get your strength built back up. So I was walking within like 2 days of surgery. So recovery went really well at first. Um, I left after 5 days. So I was the second quickest person they've ever had turn around and leave. Unfortunately, I came right back on Monday. So Sunday night, I was having really severe pain. Like I couldn't get comfortable. It was knives. So I went back for a couple of days. They got my pain under control. It was just like some internal things trying to like rework themselves. I was constipated. So I, because I hadn't gone to the bathroom since before my transplant, and all of those medications, all of that anesthesia and things like that could really block everything up. So that's ended up being what it ended up being. But which is like kind of embarrassing, but I'm like, people need to know. So like everyone I've told that's like going into transplant, I was like, hey, make sure you get like really great medications post transplant to help you poop because it's super important. You're gonna be in a lot of pain if not.
Well, I mean, it's not the same thing, but anyone who's had a baby knows,
Oh yeah, that first poop is scary.
yeah, that it's scary. So I'm sure that if anything happens in the, in medically, that would still be a scary scenario for sure.
And same thing, you're using your abdomen to go to the bathroom, so it's like you don't wanna push, So, sneezing, laughing, and coughing post-transplant was, like, the most traumatic thing, like, you were so scared to sneeze and cough. Yeah, I had a pillow I was around with a pillow for at least 2 weeks post-transplant, to make sure that, like, I had, like, that pressure guide to help me, push on my incision.
I will say, Courtney, I had 2 babies by C-section, and the constipation after the first one and dealing with that because they do, like I had no idea how much you use your abdominal muscles for dealing with that, and it was worse than the surgery. Like, the second baby, I was like, every medication I could throw at it, every vegetable I could eat pre C-section, like, everything I could do. It was basically like colonoscopy prep. Like, there will be not we are not doing that again because that was
Yep, so I'm like, anyone I can warn and give, like, that hint of advice to, I'm going to. So I went right back. I was out in like 2 days after that, though. That was early November. I think I ended up having to go back in. I went back in on Black Friday. Okay, so I got super sick again. So post transplant, you with Cleveland Clinic, you're doing blood work twice a week for at least the first couple of weeks to month. And then after that, you go to like once a week, and then every other week, and then a month. I'm super special, so I get blood work done every week because my body hates me. But so you're getting blood work done twice a week. They're making sure you're not going into rejection, that your medications are tolerated, that you have the proper medications in your system, the proper levels in your system, that nothing else is going funky. So um, on Black Friday, I had to go back into the hospital. I was in for 2 weeks. I got out the day before my daughter's seventh birthday. I got out on December 12th, and her birthday is December 13th. And I was like, you guys have to send me home. I'm not spending her birthday in the hospital. I don't care what I have to do. You're sending me home. Um, so I was in for 2 weeks because I was having bile duct issues. So, like, your bile ducts is what helps, like, run everything through your liver, right? And bile duct issues are actually really common when it comes to living donor transplants because the bile ducts are a lot smaller in a partial liver than they are when you're getting a whole liver from like a deceased donor. And I think it's just in like the preparations and things like that. Like they're getting severed, they're getting traumatized in a living donor, whereas you're getting the entire liver. Everything is completely intact and has not been cut apart other than exercising the living from the cadaver. So bile duct issues are extremely common in liver donor transplants, which is bile ducts being too small, them getting blocked, clogged, not connecting correctly, things like that. So that's ended up being what the majority of my issues post-transplant were bile duct issues. And they knew to expect some of them early on or assumed to expect some of them early on because I was a living donor transplant. So that was what most of my issues were. Some of them are by medications, and then other times you end up getting drains put in. And I've had, you get drains after your transplant, and they pull them out before you leave the hospital. The first time I had 3 drains, I left with none, which was nice. But I ended up having 3 drains total post transplant, 2 in December and January, and then 1 got placed in April. I think I had one place, and it actually fell out on its own a couple weeks ago. My body rejected it. It like hates stitches, and the stitch was coming out. So like the stitch disconnected from my skin, and I like leaned over to do something, and I leaned over to like adjust the bath water in my hot bath, and I looked down and my drain's laying in the bathtub, and I was like, oh, that's a problem.
That should have been connected to more than that.
Yes, but it was nice because it was supposed to come out on the 11th anyway, like 10 days later. So I called the doctor and he's like, nah, it's fine. Just monitor, make sure you don't get an infection. He goes, you've been here, done this before. I'm not worried about it. I was like, okay, cool.
So you've mentioned the R word, rejection. So is there a time frame where organ rejection can or cannot happen, or is it always a risk? Or okay, so it's not like once you get past a certain date that then you're in the clear, and it's and what would rejection look like?
So it can just be not feeling well, fever, things like that, or you're going to see it in blood tests. So I did have one bout of rejection in, I think, March. I had a rejection episode. I was supposed to go back to work in April, and then I ended up having a rejection episode in March that got pushed back. But it's getting you into the hospital and pumping you full of steroids, like liquid, like medication, IV steroids, like hitting you really hard and heavy with the steroids to stop it and reverse it. There's different forms of rejection. There's acute rejection. There's I don't even know, but I was fortunate to have like one of the least concerning bouts of rejection. It is more common earlier on, but it can happen. Once you hit that 1 year transplant mark, your chances decrease significantly, which is nice. But it can definitely still happen. There can still be issues. I mean, there's people that have to be retransplanted, years down the road or things like that. And we're on immune suppressant medications for life. So I'm going to always be taking these medications to help my body just accept this liver for my own, which it knows it's not. That's its duty. But there's always a risk for that. So I did have a bout of rejection. I was in the hospital, I think, for 5 days. Typically, it's anywhere from 3 to 5 days, as long as they get it under control. And they just kind of pump you full of steroids. They adjust your immune suppression medications and things like that. They do some imaging to make sure that like nothing else is going on, make sure it's not. Mine was related to a bile duct blockage, which is when they placed in my 3rd drain to make sure that it helped take care of that and reroute some things internally. They had like half of my liver was blocked off from this one bile duct being clogged up. Like half of my liver was not filtering or processing anything, which was crazy. And that happened pre-transplant. I had a blood clot in my portal vein of my liver. So we had to monitor that. I was on Coumadin and blood thinners and things like that because the blood flow just wasn't flowing through my liver. It was so cirrhotic, it wouldn't allow for any blood flow. But like I said, I was fortunate to only have one bout of rejection. And some people have their transplant and they never have issues. I unfortunately wasn't one of those people, but It is what it is. It's made me who I am and put me where I am in my journey. So,
Yeah, that's right.
So, Courtney, I'm sorry, the way my brain works when you start talking about rejection, I picture your liver like refusing to take your calls and then texting you and being like, "It's not me, it's you."
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You see it out with someone else, like. So, I feel like if your donor's liver regenerated like 25%, right? So, half of his liver is like back to ground zero, like fresh, clean, no bad college decisions, no booze, no nothing. I feel like you really did him a favor because you took part of his nasty, beat up old liver and got him a fresh, shiny new liver. So I I feel like he owes you one. You can tell him I said so.
Yeah. That's fair. So actually, he is like one of the odd ones, and he doesn't really drink. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't do stuff like that. So
The perfect donor.
he really was. He just like the worst thing he does is he dips, right? He chews, which it is what it is. But like he's not a drinker, which was another really big factor. He's like, well, it's not, because you can't drink beforehand and then you can't drink after for a while. And he was like, well, that doesn't really bother me. I don't drink anyway. But yeah, he does. His liver regenerates and just a bright, shiny new portion of his liver, which was awesome.
So then does this take care of your hepatitis? Like does that so there is a risk that this might happen again. I mean, this is a problem with being young when you get sick, is that
Yep. So this can 100% happen again. I could have to have another transplant down the road. I mean, we hope that doesn't happen. Um, there's statistics out there for liver transplants for all sorts of things. Whatever it's for, whether it's alcoholic, whether it's NASH, whether it's fatty liver, whether it's for autoimmune, whether it's for liver cancer. There's statistics out there of your life expectancy from year 1 to year 5, from year 5 to 10, from year 10 to 20 and beyond. And those obviously decrease, but you also have to take into fact the average age for a liver transplant patient is in like their 50s to 60s. Like it's not someone young like me. So there is definitely a risk. So since it's autoimmune, it's always going to be here. I'm always going to be battling it. It's never going to go away. It could, I get this new liver, and yes, it's a new lease on life, but it's a new liver for my body to start attacking again, right? Like it's a new plaything for it to be like, oh hey, screw off. I'm gonna start attacking you again.
Yeah, we wrecked the other one. Let's go after this one now too.
Yep. So it's definitely something that's there that could happen again. I mean, I hope it never happens again, but you know, I don't know. The fates will decide that, I guess.
speaking about immune things and immune suppressants, especially, um, how do you deal with not getting sick every 30 seconds because children are disgusting little germ factories anyway? And now you've suppressed your immune system, and also your immune system is going crazy on its own. Do you just like bleach your kids when they come through the door? Like hazmat suits, maybe a foot bath?
Yeah. So post transplant, we did like the kids came in. They had a routine when I came home from the hospital. They came home. They dropped their stuff at the back door of our house. They hung it up on where they're supposed to hang it up. They came in. Their shoes immediately came off. They went and washed their hands. They sanitized, and then they're allowed to go throughout the house. Because I was transplanted in November. I'm transplanted when flu and cold season is starting. So that was terrible. I was fortunate. I didn't really get sick afterwards. I have definitely been sick now, but it's been more of like it's been immune things. So I can't eat at potlucks, cookouts, things like that because food sits out. And even if it sits out for only a little bit, I am running to the bathroom 30 minutes later and then I am deathly ill for the next 24 hours. And it has happened multiple times. So now I know I'm not allowed to eat anywhere other than home.
Oh, that's all the good stuff too.
They still let you live in Ohio if you can't go to potlucks? I feel like that would get you kicked right out.
Oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. So I went to one. where I did not get sick, thankfully, because they had kept everything warm and cold, respectively, what they were supposed to. So I didn't get sick at that one, but I got sick at a graduation party. I got sick after something else. What was it? I don't know. I got sick like 3 times this summer and it was terrible. And I was literally dying for like 24 to 36 hours afterwards. It was awful. Like straight awful. So that's been what I've dealt with now. Knock on wood. I don't know what's going to happen now that we're going back into school season and flu and tick season, flu and cold season. I did get sick right after our county fair. So my husband got sick. It was like it was allergies, but like it was definitely a cold. But like some allergies, but like yeah, definitely cold because he had like the cough and like the sniffles and stuff like that. So I had it and I was sick. I was in bed sick for about 2 days, and then it took me about 5 days total to get completely over it. My two of my kids got it. One of them didn't. Both kids that got it, they were kind of down for like 12 to 24 hours. But so when I get sick, I'm getting sick, but I'm also getting sick harder and worse. Like it's affecting me worse. It's taking me longer to get over it. So we'll see what this flu and cold season holds for me. I'm not looking forward to it because my immune system. So peak immune suppression is month 3 to 6 is when your immune system is the absolute worst. I'm past that factor. I'm 10 months post now as of September 4th. uh, yeah, September 4th, I was 10 months post. I'll be 11 months post October 4th, and then obviously 1 year November 4th. But it's still something because I have to be on these immune suppressants for the rest of my life. So it's just something I have to be cautious of constantly washing my hands. I am unfortunately one of those maskers, but I'd rather mask and look weird than getting sick and being sick for 2 weeks and missing out on life.
Yeah, I think that's really good to remember, like, because I mean, obviously masking was really common during COVID. That was the expectation, but people should be feel comfortable masking for whatever reason they want to, and we don't know people's stories. So I think that we should always just assume if someone's wearing a mask, they're either doing it to protect us or themselves, and it's not a reflection on us for not wearing a mask, like if you're okay and, or if someone asks you to mask, then you should respect their wishes, right? Like because there's probably a good reason for it, and it's one tool, right? Maybe it won't help, but maybe it will. So it's worth it.
Right. So that makes me feel a little better. So I haven't lately, but like post transplant, when I was going into like grocery stores or when I was going to get my blood work done, like I always wore a mask then, like around friends and family and things like that. Like I never did, but like in like kind of those close inspired, close spaces I did. But um I have to be careful with the barn because of it. So like I said, we have goats, we have dairy goats. So I make my doctors real happy, right? Like they're like, oh, don't like it was county fair week and my coordinator was like, hey, you haven't got blood work yet. It was like Wednesday or Thursday. And normally I get it done on Mondays. And he's like, you haven't got blood work done yet. I said, oh yeah, I'm at our county fair this week. He's like, I hope you're not spending all your time in the barns. And I was like,
No, I sometimes go out and get food.
yeah, no, not spending all the time in the barn. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sleeping and napping in the barn during the day with my goats. But like there's certain spores and like I'm not allowed to bed anymore and I have to be really careful with our hay. So like my husband and the kids have to do all the bedding and cleaning of the pens, which oh darn.
Shucks.
Yeah, dang, it gets me out of that. Just because like there's mold spores and things like that can take root and take place. And then actually when the goats were kidding, I had to um wear gloves and be super cautious because there's like some sort of bacteria or virus that can live in like their placenta that can be transferable. And the looks I got from the doctor and like the public health guy were hilarious because they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I'm telling you. I was like, they're like, well, you can have someone else do it. I said, no, I can't. I said, I cannot. I said, this is my life. This is my livelihood. This is what I do. I said, I'm not having somebody else do this for me and I'm not getting rid of my animals. So you're going to help me come up with a solution is what we're going to do because I'm not giving that up, that side of my life up. That's not happening, so.
So what is the appropriate thank you gift for someone who gives you a new liver? Have you figured that out? I guess there really is no way to thank someone, but
There's not, I mean, we do whatever we can to help them. It helps that, she is literally my best friend. So we do a lot of things together. They unfortunately live a little over an hour away from us. So we don't get to see them quite as much as I'd like. But our boys are the same age. They're actually pregnant and expecting. They just announced, which is awesome. So they got engaged, and they came and told us they got engaged like on the day, like the anniversary of when Kyle got tested for his blood type. So it was like, oh my God, like last year you get tested, this year you guys get to celebrate being engaged. And then a couple days later, she calls me crying. She's like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. So their life is looking up, their life is going through the motions. But so we actually hosted a benefit dinner for me and my family in February. And they were there. His mom and dad were there. I'm really close with his parents now. She texts me on the anniversaries of like the monthly anniversaries. She's super fun. I've met his grandparents, his brother, his siblings. So we've all become really close. But he is like one of those people that is really awkward with attention. So to have someone like going out of like, to him, this wasn't a big deal. And that's just who he is as a person. He literally looked at me and I was like, Kyle, we could never thank you enough. He's like, no, when a friend needs help, you help them. Like it was that cut and dry, that plain and simple for him. Like when one of your friends needs help, you help them. And so they had actually met January of last year. And by, 7-8 months later, he was offering me an organ. And that's just who he is as a person. So like for me to go and make like a huge grand gesture to him, that would be like mortifying for him. And that's just who he is. Like I said, we talk about all the time, like, whatever you guys need, whatever we can do. And he's like, no, like I don't need like, and actually legally I can't offer him money. Like I could never monetarily help him. I couldn't monetarily pay him or things like that because that is illegal to do in exchange to be paying someone for an organ, which is a big no-no, big frowned upon. And they actually confirm with him to make sure that's not the case beforehand. They confirm with me beforehand that is not the case before you even go in for your transplant. So like I said, he is just the kind of person. He was like, no, what do you mean? He's like, it's not that big of a deal. It's fine. And we're like, no, you're literally going through a major surgery. And actually my husband and I had a lot of issue with that and a lot of guilt on our hands. Feeling like we are making someone go through an unnecessary surgery to like save my life. Like it was a really big thing for my husband and I mentally to go through that. Like just feeling guilt, when they're not necessarily shouldn't be guilt because this is something he's offering, but like it's also really hard on us to think like he's going to be out of work. He's having this surgery. He's going to have recovery. Like he's going through all these major life events just for me. And like it's a really heavy burden to carry. And then on the flip side, he has felt a lot of guilt and issues whenever I was in the hospital for rejection episodes or issues because him on the flip side of that, it was him thinking, what if I wasn't the right match? What if I'm making her sicker? Like, what if my liver is making this worse? Like, what if there was someone else that was a better match and I stepped up and I am making this so much worse? So like both of us on both sides, just because I think the kind of people we are, we're carrying like some guilt with this situation. But now post-transplant and not like thankfully things are going better for me. So everything has calmed down some, but there's definitely a lot of burdens around it. That like no one talks about that. It's things you don't think of beforehand. You don't think are going to come up. Like with the deceased donor, that comes with a whole other host of burdens. Like, someone lost their loved one, someone lost their family member, their mom, their dad, their husband, their sister, their brother, their son, their daughter, whoever, that comes with its own list of burdens, but it also comes with a list of burdens, and those are talked about a lot, because for the most part, the most of your transplants are deceased donor. But then on the flip side, like I said, no one talks about the burdens you feel on the opposite side of that, right? Like the living donor side that like you're putting someone through. I mean, it's an unnecessary surgery. It's a surgery they're opting into because they are just that genuinely good of a human, So you do feel some guilt. At least we did on that aspect. And we asked Kyle all the time, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Like, you can back out. We promise we won't be mad. Like, we told him that multiple times. Like, if you ever feel anxious about it and you decide you don't want to, that's okay. Like, we understand. It's a surgery. It's a big thing to commit to. are some things we really tried to drive home.
So I have one joking question and then a unfortunately really serious PSA. Um, do you feel like you'll ever be able to ask him to like help you move or paint a bedroom or anything? Because like he already gave you his liver. Like what else do you want? Seriously.
Right. Probably because we have a really good joking relationship. Like I'll text my friend. Like the other day I texted her, I texted both of them. I was like, I'm Frankenstein. I was like, I'm not Frankenstein, I'm Kyle Stein. But like I am Frankenstein basically. I have pieces and parts of somebody else. I'm like, I'm not Frankenstein, I'm Kyle Stein because I'm part Kyle. Like we just have like that weird awkward joking relationship. So I can be like, come on, Kyle, you only gave me part of your liver. Like you can do more. Come on. Like so we do have like that kind of relationship that we could joke about with each other. Like, oh, come on, like let's you could do more. My husband. So like I said, it was 3 days before my birthday, and we were celebrating my birthday in the hospital, and they come in, and Kyle's like, or they come in to sit with us, and my husband's like, God, Kyle, you dick, I could never top this birthday present. He's like, you give her a liver. What the hell am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, flowers just don't cut it anymore.
Yeah, he's like, I can't ever top this birthday present, you jerk.
So the more serious thing I had to add, when you were speaking, about needing pediatric organs for pediatric patients, one thing that came up with my health issues when I was pregnant with our son is the tremendous need for pediatric organs. And because kids can't give consent, they have to come from deceased donors. And our doctor was saying that the single biggest problem isn't that parents wouldn't want their child to be an organ donor, it's that in that moment, nobody's going to ask. Because no, and I mean, it's a pretty immediate decision. It's not something that you can be like, let me take a couple weeks and think about it, when you're in that moment. So we were able to really like sit down and talk about it, my husband and I, and get back to the doctor and be like, we want it put in our file that if this ever becomes a conversation that we could have, that we want you to approach us about that, because you can't put big people organs in little bodies. They don't, it doesn't work, and they just don't fit. And at the same time, I absolutely see why, no medical person wants to walk up to a family that's in this situation and be like, so have you thought about giving us your kid's heart?
And I think that the important thing is the conversation. I mean, obviously for children, but for anyone, right? And I mean, that's usually the message that we hear is have the conversation with your loved ones. If you're an adult and consent and can consent to that in advance, it's not enough to just sign your organ donor card, because if your family does not agree or did not, had never had that discussion, didn't understand your wishes, that you hadn't made it expressly known, then sometimes that means that those organs would not be used. So as grim as it is, we should be having those conversations with our loved ones and understand how they feel about that and what they would want if the worst were to happen.
I know some of the organ donor advertising can be really cheesy, encouraging people to sign donor cards or whatever. Um, One of my uncles was incredibly fortunate to get a kidney donation from a deceased donor. And as hellish as that must have been for that man's family, um, they were able to give my uncle two kidneys because there was some rare antibody match or some other thing that he was on death's door before he got that transplant. And he got more than 10 more years. He got to see his grandbabies born. He got an extra decade with his family. And what that meant to us, I mean, there's no comparison to what that can mean. And to be honest, you're dead. You're not using them. I understand that people have religious beliefs. I'm a pretty gross person. Like, I kind of totally want to ask if I can see your dead liver. So, like, I'm that person. I'm like, man, I'm not using them. I understand that people don't want to think about having their body cut up after they're dead. But if it's something that you can offer, it is such a tremendous gift.
It really is. So our bodies, like you said, are amazing. So while you're alive, some of the things you can donate, obviously, one kidney, a lung or a partial, your lung, part of your liver, which is obviously regenerative. You can donate part of your pancreas, and you can also donate part of your intestine, all while you're a living donor. And then when we're deceased, so like I'm registered to be an organ donor, even though like my liver couldn't be used, other parts of me can be used, and my family knows that and they know my stance on it. Both kidneys, your whole liver, both lungs, your heart, your pancreas, intestines, hand, face, both corneas, even I think skin in some cases, like all these things essentially, and like you said, people have certain feelings about it, and that's totally fine. And that's just a conversation you have to have. And that's something you have to reflect on as a person, but, and as yourself. And there's no right or wrong answer. But, it's such a gift. And that is a gift, like, to once you're deceased, like to so many families, so many people, because certain things can be used pediatrically, certain things, you know, yeah, you lost your loved one, but like, you can also help save someone else's loved one, right? Like, it's a big ask, it's a big discussion, but it's something that people should reflect on, and it's not something to put off until later either, because we don't know when our day is. We don't know, do you walk outside and get hit by a car? Do you get into a car accident? Is it just your day? Like, you just don't know when your time is, so it's something that you shouldn't put off. And I feel like, us being farm wives and on the farm, we deal with that because our farmers and the farmers ahead of us, the generations ahead of us, they think they're going to live forever. So, like, plans don't get put in place until it's too late or something happens. And then that's when farms are getting moved around or sold off for something. So, it's definitely something that people need to stop and think about earlier rather than later. And if they decide to change their mind later on, that's fine. But it's definitely something to think about early on because you have no idea how long you're going to live. No one has that answer.
I think especially with organ donation, because generally, if your death is fairly predictable, generally that means that you're not in a age or time or space to be donating. You know, if you've been sick for quite a while or you're really elderly, whatever. I know for myself, because of my own health history, I'm not able to donate. And that was a much harder thing than I expected because, like, at this point, I have a history of melanoma, so I can't even donate blood because it is theoretically transmissible. And it's to have that taken away was a lot harder than I expected because I do believe in it so fervently, and then to be like, haha, but none of my body.
Yes, you can't have any of me.
Yeah. They said if it was a really rare match, they might consider it, but generally, the risk of giving someone cancer is not really like a great trade-off.
That's not the gift,
Yeah.
yeah. So you touched on it briefly. We talked earlier about a benefit. Are you willing to talk about the financial aspect of what this has meant for your family?
Yeah, so it's a big hit financially. Like, they won't even think about it unless you have insurance. It's like $800,000 for a transplant. Like, it's crazy. It's a crazy amount of money. Um and that was just the transplant, right? Like, that's not all of my hospital bills that accumulated with all of my other hospital stays. Like, one of them was like $200,000 for one stay, just for everything that they do, which is crazy. And you can get into a whole other deep dive on hospital bills and stuff like that. But so we hosted a benefit because I had been off work for a year on medical leave. I just went back right after Labor Day, was able to go back. So it's been nice. But, it just helped with some hospital bills. It helped with just because my husband, I mean, working on the farm as a farmer, he's not, it's not a traditional job. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a construction job where he's bringing home like this massive paycheck. It is what it is. Most of what he earns goes right back into the farm. So um, it was an adjustment to our lifestyle, but we didn't really live high anyway. But it just helped keep us not afloat because we weren't drowning, but it helped us keep stable for the months that we needed it to. So it was a big benefit, but it was also just a time to celebrate. Like, I was post-transplant, I was feeling better. It was a time to get all of our family and friends together. We ended up having over 200 people there. Like, it was crazy. We had tons of raffles from friends and family and local businesses. It was just a good, fun time to be together, and just enjoy and celebrate Kyle and celebrate, myself. So really, that's what it was. And the side piece was to raise some money to kind of help us out. But the biggest part was just having that time to be able to get everyone together to celebrate post transplant.
So we haven't talked too much about the kids, and I'm not going to go into too many kid questions, but I'm just going to do a couple of the ones that we normally ask our farm guests. So what is your favorite thing about raising kids on the farm and having a connection to agriculture?
I can kick them outside and tell them to go play.
Yeah, that's a good.
Get out of the house, go play, go do something. We touched on it earlier. They are raised in a different aspect of life. They see a different aspect. Like, they're not hid. I don't personally hide them from things, from tough conversations, whether it's life, death, illness, things like that. Um, they are raised with a sense. I feel like farm kids are raised with a sense of just otherworldness. Like, they just know things, right? Like, I feel like they're more well-rounded. They have this experience that all these other kids don't have, and they don't realize how fortunate they are, how different their life is, until they have friends come over and their friends are like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. They're like, what are you talking about? This is just Tuesday. Like, this is what we do every day. Like, yeah, I go do chores, every day after school, or every morning before school, or I feed that calf before school, or whatever it is. So I think it's just so fortunate to be able, in a community that's decreasing every day, like, farms are being sold every single day, just be fortunate to have that stronghold there, where my kids are fortunate to grow up on a farm, whether, whatever that looks like for however long, but I just feel blessed that they're able to grow up and have that life experience that, like, I didn't have, that I wanted, that, like, I would have killed for. I'm glad I'm able to turn around and give that to my kids.
What is your biggest parenting struggle these days?
Oh, my 5-year-old son.
Not to pick least favorites, but
No, he's not. He's so sweet and so cuddly and so cute, and he gets away with everything because he's so cute and he's the baby. But he is like wild child. He is the feral child. Like, he is wild and crazy. But actually, on the flip side, my oldest, and both girls, my oldest is into that preteen stage. So we're into the drama, we're into the smart mouthing, we're into, like, all of that. But on the flip side, she's also like the biggest helper. She can drive, like, our side by like our little utility side by side. Like, she can drive that around. She gets trash out. Like, she can drive it. Like, we were just doing silage. We feed our steer silage. So we were just cutting silage, corn, and she was able to just drive it across the road to go pick up some stuff for my husband, or go pick them up, bring them back over to the farm to pick up some stuff because they broke the bagger, um, to help. So she's at that age where she's such a big helper. But just struggling wise is just normal kid things. But also there's, like, an added heighten to it because, like, the farm is a super dangerous place. So, like, especially with our son. So our son, on his second birthday, he's 5. On his second birthday, he actually amputated 2 of his fingers. He stuck them. He was outside grinding feed with dad, and he stuck his fingers where they don't belong, and those 2 fingers popped right off. He got a life flight light for his birthday, for his second birthday. So my husband and I both have, like, some trauma, some PTSD diagnosed um, with that. So that is one of the harder aspects, is always knowing where they're at, but also trying to, like, relinquish enough control that they don't feel like they're drowning under us, but giving, like, also, like, watching them enough that, like, something bad's not going to happen again. So, like, being farm kids, they are free range, they are running around, they are kind of doing not whatever they want, but they have more freedom because they have more responsibility and they are more responsible. But it's like, on the flip side, like, it is hard.
yeah, it's that go out and play, but don't hurt yourself. Yeah, exactly.
It's like that was far enough ago that, like, he's lost all, like, he didn't really have fear because he was 2. So, like, he knows what happened, he knows when it happened. He knows some of it, but it's like all that fear factor that he would have had if he was older is, like, not there at all.
Yeah. He's got more fingers.
Yeah, he asked my husband the other day, he was like, "Dad, can I go grind feed with you? I promise I won't stick my hand in again."
I've been told that's what I did last time. So
Yeah, yeah. I was like, "Okay." So, yeah, just normal parenting stuff with, going into preteen age, parenting a 5-year-old boy with and then, like I said, my 9-year-old daughter is in that preteen stage, and then my 7-year-old daughter, I mean, she's right behind her, so we're gonna work through this one, we're gonna go right into it with the next one, so
all the fun stuff. Do you have any parenting advice that you've learned along the way or someone shared with you that you would want to share with another farming parent?
parents in general, none of us know what we're doing.
That is true. That's what we have found. We're 5 seasons in, and that's the general consensus.
Yeah, no one really knows what you're doing. You just do the best, and if you're worried about being a good parent, you are a good parent. If you are constantly worried about your kids, you're worried about being a good parent, you're worried if you're doing enough, like you are then, like, because a bad parent's not going to worry about if they're a good parent or not, if they're harming their kids mentally, or emotionally, things like that. And then as a farming parent, just they can do so much more than what you think they can do. They are so much more capable than what you think they are. Um, they are so much, give them that experience, even if when you can, like if you can safely let them help, if you can safely give them that experience and they can safely help you do something, let them, even if it's going to take you another 5-10 minutes. They're not going to learn any younger, is what we say, like they can't learn any younger, than what they are today. So give them that opportunity, give them that experience and ability to be able to help and do those things that you are expecting them to do, and then give them grace when you're teaching them to, right? Like just give them grace because they're 5, they're 10, they're 12, they're however old, just let them do it, because like I said, they can do so much more than what we give them credit for and what we think. They're always going to be our babies in our eyes, but they can do it.
So, Courtney, we ask all of our guests, if you were going to dominate a category at the county fair, what would it be? And categories can be real or made up to ensure that you win.
This is a good one because my oldest, this was her first year at fair. So my husband is like the non-fair person. If he could not go to the county fair, he would. But I am a fair person, like a big fair person. Like even not having animals there, I could be there all day long. I just love it. Um, Honestly, it would have to be like the market beef side of it. I couldn't even think of a random category to like bring up. But it would have to be like the market beef. So this was her first year. She did a dairy feeder and she did a market animal. She actually run reserve overall with her dairy feeder, which was awesome. Um, and now I think my husband would definitely agree with that, because the feeders over the market beef, because that's, it's really cool to see a little 9-year-old girl that's 60 pounds out there manhandling this 1,500-pound animal. I think it's awesome to see that. And she feels like a little badass doing it. And then it gives her a big boost of confidence and she feels awesome, which is great. And then on the parent side and on the farmer side, you're like, yeah, I raised that. I know what I'm doing. Things like that. So it definitely had to be something with the beef animals. Personally, it'd probably be like the dairy goat stuff. If I could go in and just dominate the dairy goats, I totally would. But overall aspect, it would definitely be the beef for sure.
Yeah, clearly the fair is important. I mean, that's where you found your liver guys. So the fair is a theme for this episode for sure. Yeah. So we will move into our cussing and discussing segment. If you're a listener and want to submit your cussing and discussing this week, you can go to our speak pipe or our email, and we will either play your voice memo or read it out for you. Katie, what do you have to cuss and or discuss this week?
I think what I would like to discuss and or cuss, I don't know, is how important it is for medical providers in rural areas to have education about rural people and the lifestyle and things like, why no, I won't be staying away from my goats despite their horrible germiness. I had the same issue with our sheep when I was pregnant because, yeah, they can carry some pretty gnarly germs.
Or yes, that rash is probably ringworm because they are from a farm.
Yeah, yeah. Or, yes, my 2-year-old did amputate 2 fingers while grinding feed. These are we our local clinic does a lot of rotations for students from the big university hospital, and you can always tell who might actually be successful in a rural practice versus who will not be by how horrified they look at things, and just it's different. And it's not fair to providers to not educate them in these things and then to send them into places and then be surprised when they struggle with also things like, my doctor said, her patients die because they're old folks and, she knows them really well. Or like, in our small community, you see the same OB for every appointment until your kid's born. And then you might still see them for every like 3 month checkup or whatever. Like you get that continuity of care, which is amazing as a patient, but I think it can be a lot harder on providers. And, just it's hard attracting good providers to rural areas anyway. Um, so whatever we can do to support people in being successful for things like that. And God bless the rural medical staff who manage to not look too horrified by the ridiculous shit that happens.
Oh yeah. So we're really fortunate. So actually last night I took my husband to the emergency room because I thought he was having a heart attack. He's 37. He was having heart attack symptoms, so we took him in. He had to grind feed first. Um, he was like, well, at least if I'm in the hospital, the cows can eat for 3 more days. Like, yeah, I'm going to grind feed first. I was like, yes, okay, naturally, sure, whatever. And then I had to walk down a road to my neighbor's house who is an EMT. I said, can you come down and talk to my stubborn ass of a husband and let us know if I should take him in or not? But when we got there, the doctor was awesome because, like you said, some of them you can tell if they grew up in rural. He's like, oh, what do you do? My husband's like, I'm a farmer. He goes, oh, I know how hard it was to get you through that door then. Like, okay, you're going to be here a little bit because I'm going to run. He's like, you probably haven't been to the doctor in 10 years, have you? And my husband's like, no. He goes, yeah, I figured. And he was like, that's okay. He's like, you're here now and that's what matters. Like, but while you're here, I am going to run some tests on you because I don't know when the next time you're going to come in is. And he knew that. And you know what? He didn't discredit him for that. Like when we were leaving, he's just said like, hey, you do need to follow up with someone, but like, that is what it is. Like he gave him that grace because he's like, I know how hard it was probably for you to even get in this office. And then on the flip side with like my son, when he amputated his fingers, we were taken to our local hospital and then we were life flighted from there to Akron Children's, which is like a big children's hospital about an hour from us. But luckily it wasn't farm wise, but it was parent wise. The tremendous guilt you feel with your child having such a tragic accident. The providers, the nurse, I will never forget. He looked at me. He goes, hey, it is not your guys' fault. He goes, there is nothing in the world faster than a 2-year-old going to do something they're not supposed to do. And you guys know that as moms, like there is nothing faster than a little kid running towards something that they should not be doing or running away from something, running away from you, trying to chase them for something. Like he's like, it happens. Like it is not your guys' fault. It is called an accident for a reason. So like on that same front, like just having understanding providers, no matter if it's a nurse, if it's a doctor, if it's in a rural setting, like having those providers that understand their audience, right?
I know, too, having also spent time at the local ER for a potential heart thing recently, we were reminded that they would always much rather see you for a false alarm than to have you dead at home because, well, I'm sure it's nothing, says every person ever who then ends up dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it was. We weren't going in on a crash cart and he was able to walk out last night. Like that's what it was, thankfully.
I think they would much, much rather see you when you can walk out. And whether you need a follow up with the cardiologist or whatever, okay, but, you know, they'd rather not have to life flight you. Arlene, what do you have to cuss and discuss?
So mine is much lighter in tone than the two of you, but I was really good all summer and I kept up with the sunscreen. And I don't think, I got little spots of sunburn every now and then, but, just where I missed the sunscreen. But then on the fair theme, I was at my hometown fair. We were showing animals. It was a beautiful September day, and it was an outdoor show. And I did not put on sunscreen before I went. And I'm a week out, and my nose is peeling, and my forehead is peeling. And I got the sunburn of the summer
in September, but it was just so nice out in the sunshine and it wasn't hot.
Your raccoon mask looks a lot better, Arlene.
Yeah, and I was wearing sunglasses, so I had like the full raccoon look as well. I was glad that wasn't actually seeing people for a couple of days, but yeah, now I'm having to do a lot of moisturizing because it's coming off. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, just didn't think of it. Yeah, at the fair. So we want to thank you so much, Courtney, for joining us today and for sharing your story. And I think that there's so many important messages in what you had to tell us. If people want to get in touch for any reason, where should they find you online if they want to connect?
So my Facebook page, Liver But Hold the Onions.
Great name, by the way.
Thank you. I had to play kind of on the meat, the meat production side, liver and onions, but it was play on words. I felt pretty clever when I came up with it. So that's the best place. I try to be prevalent on there. Now that my health journey is easing down, I don't post as much, but I'm trying to get it back up again. But that's the best place to reach out. Eventually look out for the book that'll be titled the same thing. So, Liver But Hold the Onions, but that's the best place to reach out. And I'm always happy to talk with someone, email, message, whatever it is, whether they have questions or want to know more, or want to know where to go or things like that. I'm an open book. I'm happy to help out in any way and talk about my journey.
Thank you so much. It was great to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Barnyard Language. If you enjoy the show, please support us on Patreon with a donation.
Big thanks go out to our show editor, Krista Paffrath at the Rural Podcast Network.
Please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen and follow the show so you never miss an episode.
If you want to connect with other farming families, join the private Barnyard Language Facebook group.
We are always in search of future guests for the podcast. If you or someone you know would like to chat with us, get in touch.